Winners, balls of goals. Today, I'm talking to you about horror movie hot takes, or my horror movie hot takes. I'm going to do this top 10 style, discuss the films a little bit, sort of the synopsis, and then my thoughts on why it's a hot take. So in at number 10, we have Mama is Overrated. Mama is a 2013 horror film directed by Andy Muschietti, who I am quite a fan of, and it stars Jessica Chastain. This film was really overhyped for me. People were singing its praises. This is a really good horror movie. This is such a good film. And I didn't think it was. I found the story convoluted. I found the effects on the ghost of Mama, or the spirit of Mama herself, just really bad CGI. The whole thing with the twin brother dads and fostering these girls, just, nothing about this movie seemed right to me. The ending just wasn't very good. The film follows these two young girls who have been abandoned and left in this cabin, in this forest cabin. And they've been looked after by this unknown entity called Mama. And then they're rescued, taken back into our world, or, a modern setting. One kid does well, one doesn't. There's some good elements here, but completely taken out of the movie by the poor CGI effects and the convoluted story. And I still fail to understand why this film was recommended to me so many times by so many people. Number 9. We need a new Freddy movie. A lot of Nightmare on Elm Street fans will disagree and say, no, the originals are the best. Now, I'm of the opinion that the first 3 are really good. Yep, I like the second one. Most people don't. I don't care. I like New Nightmare, but New Nightmare is a bit weaker than the others for me. Purely because I don't like the look of Freddy very much. But visually, the film is pretty cool, other than Freddy, or what portrays itself to be Freddy. But then, all the movies in between, I either get very bored of or have complete disdain for. Freddy's Dead is abysmal. I know some people can enjoy it for the silly nonsense that it is. I'm not one of those people. So when I say it's a hot take that we need another Freddy movie, I think we need another Freddy movie, and without Robert Englund. I don't know if that's going to be a remake or whether it's a continuation. But I think they should cast another younger unknown. I've seen people saying, Kevin Bacon would make an excellent Freddy Krueger. He would, but he's too old. How many times can he fill that role? Because he's not that much younger than Englund, to be fair. We need somebody early 30s to take up the mantle of Freddy that can play it for another decade. And I'm not completely against them. I'm not completely against them just rewriting everything. What I don't want to see is Robert Englund's Freddy. I don't want to see Nancy. I don't want a remake. I would like another Freddy Krueger. I just want to see Freddy Krueger on Elm Street, tearing some kids apart in their dreams, playing games with them, being all creepy. Unknown actor. Try to stay away from the CGI where possible. I understand in this day and age you have to have some CGI, but don't do what the remake did. And certainly please don't make him a PDF file. Just saying. I think personally that we are ready for another Freddy Krueger, another spin on Freddy Krueger. I hope they make it dark. I mean, Jackie Earle Haley did a very good job of playing this dark Krueger, but his script was terrible. The effects weren't very good, and the supporting cast, awful. I think it's time we got an updated Freddy, and I think it's time we got a new Freddy movie. Number 8. This may catch some people off guard. The Exorcist 3 is a better movie than The Exorcist. Before you send out the lynch mobs, I love The Exorcist, I really do. But it wasn't one of those films that ever scared me, because I watched it as I was a child, but I was a teenage child, and I found the whole thing hilarious. I don't know why. I laughed at the movie. Watching it again as an adult, you can see the horrifying elements of it, but it never truly scared me, unlike Freddy Krueger did. And I don't know, maybe I became too sensitized to horror by the time I got around to watching it as an adult. For the second time, because I watched it once as a teenager. I had no desire to watch it again. As an adult, I love that film. It is such a well-made film, but to me it wasn't that scary. Then in 1999, The Exorcist 3 came out, and again it's William Peter Blatty, and after the second one, which is one of the worst movies of all time, I found this film so good. I didn't watch it for a long time because I thought the original was overhyped. The second one was absolute trash, so I just stayed away from the third one, and I watched the trailer for it. I was like, that looks kind of boring. So if you don't know, The Exorcist 3 is based on William Blatty's book from 1983 titled Legion. And it stars George C. Scott, Ed Flanders, Justin Miller, Scott Wilson, Nicole Williamson, and Brad Dourif. And Brad Dourif in this movie is epic. There are certain films where Brad Dourif does things where you're like, that's Oscar worthy. This would be one of them. And another would be Rob Zombie's Halloween Part 2, where Brad Dourif makes this brutal discovery, and Brad Dourif does the most emotional thing I've ever seen him do. It's absolutely fantastic. He is criminally underrated as a horror actor, or an actor in general. So The Exorcist 3 rightfully ignores the events of The Exorcist 2. Hallelujah, somebody saw the light there. And this film follows directly on from the original. And we're looking for a serial killer here. But basically, if you've never seen it, I'm not going to spoil it. It ties into the original. It was released in 1990, and it is a fantastic criminal procedural movie, but it has one of the best jump scares in horror ever. It's, in fact, my favourite jump scare. You'll know the one with the nurse or the nun with the garden shears. Such a great jump scare. Well earned. I love this film. I love the acting. I love the story, how it keeps you guessing. Fantastic movie, and to me, it's better than the original Exorcist. Number 7. The original Terminator and the original Predator movies are horror films. This is an argument a few people have had. Now, to me, they sit alongside Alien. They are sci-fi or action horror movies. You know, the original Terminator, this unstoppable killing machine coming from the future, chasing down this woman and killing everything in its path without remorse. And if you'd put a mask on him and didn't call him a robot, you'd describe him Michael Myers. The way he stalks his prey, the brutality of it all. It's only the fact that he uses a gun that seems to pull her away from horror movies. Some people have made the argument that it's a slasher film. I don't quite agree with that. There's slasher elements to it, but he's using a gun, not a knife. The original Predator, there is this unseen killing thing in the jungle. We can't see it, we hear it, and then when it's fully exposed, it is a monster. Okay, it's an alien, but it is a monster that is hunting people down. Really well-trained military outfit and killing them in brutal ways. It's skinning them and hanging them up, and arms and limbs are flying all over the place. It's a horror movie. It's just an action horror movie. And I still see Terminator and Predator as horror movies. Number 6. The Insidious franchise really isn't very good. Now, there was a lot of hype for the original Insidious movie. A lot of people were like, this film is epic, gotta go and see it. And I can't remember if I watched Paranormal Activity first or Insidious. I think it was Paranormal Activity, and I enjoyed those movies. I was expecting Insidious to be a more scary, sort of high-budget version. But when I first watched Insidious and I saw the first ghost that you see sort of walk behind the baby's crib, where you see the netting, and I just looked at it, I was like, is that it? Is that the big scary bad of this movie? Because that sucked. And you keep seeing all these ghosts, different ghosts, and I'm like, these just look like guys covered in talcum powder. And then they introduce us to the lipstick demon, and I'm like, I'm not scared by that. I don't know who thought that makeup design was a good idea, but it wasn't. Not for me. There is a good jump scare in a movie that isn't that great for me. I enjoyed Lin Shaye's performance, but other than that, Then the second one came out, and the second one was a lot better for me. It was better shot, the ghosts looked better, acted better. There were elements of it that just felt like a retread of the first one, but it was a direct continuation. But I enjoyed it more than the first one. Then we get to Insidious Chapter 3, which, to me, is the best of the Insidious franchise, which is weird, because normally the third movies ain't the best. This is a prequel, kind of, because it's set... Sure, this film is set 3 years before the original Lambert haunting. But what I like about this movie is it's its own self-contained story, but the Lin Shaye character is what spreads into the other movies. What I really like about this is the protagonist is a young girl that's been involved in a really bad accident. Both of her legs are in plaster casts, so she can't move, she can't walk, she's in pain. And then this thing is just stalking her while she's stuck in her bed. You hear it breathing, you see it at the corner of your eye. So well done. Really enjoyed this movie. It felt completely original to the two that came before it, which in all honesty make me think of other movies. This, as a standalone, I thought was far better. Dermot Mulroney is really good in this, as is Stephanie Scott. I just really enjoyed this movie, and to me it's the strongest one in a very, very weak franchise. Insidious: The Last Key. I've watched it twice. Barely remember anything about it. Kind of like the demon with the keys for the fingers, but it just seemed really contrived and very little effort, and almost like another retread of the first two. Then we got Insidious: The Red Door, which came out in 2023, and I was quite excited for it because we're going to see an older Dalton and an older dad, and how had the family dynamic shifted? What was going to be the story this time? What was Rose Byrne's character? It was almost another retelling of the original stories, but with Dalton being older. The actor who plays Dalton in this is fine, but he looks like he's sleepwalking throughout the majority of the video. Patrick Wilson, it's hard to distinguish his character in these movies from Ed Warren. They're just too similar in certain aspects. They go back into trying to discover this past that none of them remember, which is what they did in the second one, and again, I barely remember anything about this film other than older Dalton was in it. There were some cool effects here and there. Having one really good horror movie in a franchise of 5 does nothing for me. I'd rather just watch the third one, forget the others exist. Okay, number 5, Talk to Me and Tarot. Both films come out within quite quick succession of each other. One was being held up as this amazing horror movie, the best horror movie in films, and one was like, this film is total shit. The one that everyone said was so great, brilliant, amazing was Talk to Me. Ooh, Scary Hand. I enjoyed the film. I'm not gonna shit on it. I enjoyed the film. Then I watched Tarot, expecting the worst film of the year, and we're like, that was every bit as good as Tarot. And I know people are gonna be like, are you serious? Yeah. I enjoyed them both equally. I didn't think Tarot was a bad film. I didn't think Talk to Me was an exceptionally good film. I thought it was enjoyable. I could watch it again. But I found Tarot enjoyable, and I could watch it again. There was this massive disconnect, like, this one is so good, this one is so bad, and I didn't see that. Number 4, and I'm really going to piss people off here, the It remakes are far, far superior. Listen, I agree with you. Tim Curry was epic as Pennywise. He was creepy, they nailed the look, he was fantastic. But the child actors in it are not that great. But the adult actors somehow were even worse. I find the adult portions borderline unwatchable. This is a cheese fest. Whilst I still love the movie, but it's only for Tim Curry's Pennywise that I love it. I like the remakes more. They're far better written, and I understand part 2 is a lot weaker than part 1. And again, the child actors did a better job, but comparatively, the adults in the remake of part 2 were leaps and bounds above anything that's come before them. Bill Skarsgård is almost every bit as good as Tim Curry. He has some things that work better in his favour. The things he does with his face naturally, and turning of the one eye and the curling of the lip and stuff. Really, really good. I don't hate either. I don't hate any of these movies. But the original TV show has not aged well at all. I remember watching as a kid and it scared the pants off me. As an adult watching, I'm like, can we just get to the clown already? Can you just hurry up and bring in Pennywise, because this is a slog. And it's not just because he's old, because I love the original Pet Sematary movie, and as cheesy as that is, I love that movie, and it's got a far scarier tone than the original It miniseries. Hey, this really set the cat amongst the pigeons with number 3. There are only 2 really good Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Just 2. I enjoy the original Tobe Hooper Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I adore the remake. I think it's every bit as good, in some places better, because of the gore, because of the effects, the intensity. I can see some issues why people don't like it as much as the original. I don't understand why it's absolutely hated. Obviously, the original was released in 1974, and then the remake was made in 2003. This is sort of the Michael Bay era of remakes, and we'll get to another one of them, my number one slot. And then we've got R. Lee Emery as Sheriff Hoyt. He is the scariest thing in the remake by far. So, as I said, I love the original, I love the remake. I'm going to watch one over the other. As much as this will piss people off, I'll watch the remake. It's a bit more in line with my tastes. But if we look at the entire Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, it's awful. The original, fantastic. Texas Chainsaw 2, I know some people love that movie for its silliness, for its campiness. I'm not one of them. It's such a tonal shift, I can't get into it. Texas Chainsaw 3, Leatherface, barely remember it. Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Considering where Matthew McConaughey and Renée Zellweger are now, this movie is so bad. So bad. Then we got the remake. Fantastic. Then we got Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, which is a prequel to the remake. And it's directed by the same people. It's made by the same people. It's got it's still a good movie. Not quite on par with the remake. But it's cool enough. And then Texas Chainsaw 3D came out, and that was awful. Then Leatherface came out with it. Turned into this whodunit, and we didn't need it. And then they did the Netflix Texas Chainsaw. There's a cool scene where Leatherface gets on a bus, a party bus, just mows through all these kids. Really cool, but it's all let down by this shitty CGI dolphin dive thing he does at the end, and they give him borderline superpowers. You know, we've got the victim, the surviving victim of the original Texas Chainsaw. She comes back. She's an old lady now, and I'm not being disrespectful, but she takes some brutal shots that would kill an average person, let alone somebody of her age. And she keeps getting back up. I didn't like the cast in this movie. I didn't like anything about it. I didn't like the setting. Just, it didn't have the grime that I want from a Texas Chainsaw movie. Awful. But yeah, for me, the original 1974 Texas Chainsaw by Tobe Hooper, and then the 2003 remake. They're the only ones that are any good for me. Okay, in at number 2. Now, don't get this wrong. I absolutely love, absolutely adore the Evil Dead franchise. I personally don't think there is a bad Evil Dead movie. I adore the TV show Ash vs. the Evil Dead. Even the video games of the Evil Dead are brilliant. But I need you to hear me out. So we had the original Evil Dead, which is like a guerrilla shot independent movie. It's a bit ropey in places, but very, very scary. Very well made for the budget that they had. Then part 2 came out, which I absolutely adore. But when you watch those two movies back to back, you're kind of caught off guard, like, is this a remake of what I've just watched? But then they've changed this, they've changed certain cast members, and it gets a bit confusing. But then you watch the third one, which is obviously years later, as a trilogy back to back. Doesn't fit. It doesn't even fit tonally. The comedy sort of progressed through the first 3, and it's quite jarring if you watch them back to back, but I still enjoy all 3 movies separately for what they are. Then they announced a remake of The Evil Dead, and I was one of those people saying, oh hell no. No, don't touch it. It doesn't need touching. The original Evil Dead came out in the year of my birth, 1981. We got Evil Dead 2 in 1987, and then in 1993 we got Army of Darkness, all directed by Sam Raimi. All fantastic films, but all jarring if you watch them back to back to back. And in 2013, the Freddy Alvarez Evil Dead, the trailer dropped, and I went, oh, this looks good. This looks really good. I had no intention of going to the cinema to watch it until I saw the trailer. And then when I went to watch the movie, the opening scene blew me away. It was brutal. And then the story makes sense, as in, there is a girl that is trying to get clean from drugs. Her friends take her to this remote cabin, assuming that she is just trying to get clean, and everything that she is saying and going through is in regards to the drugs. It eliminates the stupidity of nearly every horror movie by just saying, she's a recovering drug addict. This film is visceral, it is violent, It is borderline painful to watch. There is a scene where Mia is in like this crawl space, and then a machete blade slices into her leg. Not too deep, but enough. And you wince in pain watching. You're like, oh. There's things with eyeballs, glass in eyeballs, and needles and nail guns, and an electronic carving knife. This film is disgusting. This film is brutal. The effects are fantastic. It's grimy looking, and it fits with the original franchise. If you look at it as it's an Evil Dead story set in this universe, and it's so jarring because the other three were so jarring in how different they were. Then in 2023, we got Evil Dead Rise, and I watched the trailer for Evil Dead Rise, and I went, oh, I don't know. And then there was that little scene with the peephole and open up now, and I was like, ooh, kind of creepy, kind of funny. Maybe they bring in a bit more of the comedy element back. For some reason, I didn't watch it in the cinema. I waited for home release. And I'm gutted that I didn't go to the cinema, because that opening scene and then the credit reveal, I absolutely loved it. I know plenty of people that say, it sucked. I'm not one of them. I loved The Evil Dead Rise. I thought it was creepy, I thought it was funny, and again, it fits in with the franchise. And in 2026, apparently, we are getting Evil Dead Burn, and I'm looking forward to that. I just wish they'd kept on Freddy Alvarez. But for me, the 2013 Freddy Alvarez movie is head and shoulders the best above any of them. That end battle with all the blood rain and the chainsaw, and she pulls part of her own arm off to fight. All he was missing was a Slayer soundtrack of Rain in Blood while she's drilling that demon in the face with the chainsaw. Such a good movie. So much blood. So much blood. And then, my number one hot take. The best Friday the 13th movie is the remake. So, I am not a massive Friday the 13th fan, as in the series. I'm a Jason Voorhees fan from certain movies. For example, I don't really like the original Friday the 13th. It looks like shit. It sounds like shit. It's got some really cool death effects in there. Obviously, Kevin Bacon getting stabbed through the throat is a memorable part, but the movie makes no sense. It's a whodunit without any clues as to who done it. And then Pamela Voorhees pops up at the end like, yeah, it was me all along. And you're like, what? What? Where did you come from? We at least have to see somebody, even if it's for one scene, for us to go, oh. But then there are certain shots of hands and things, and it's clearly a man's hands. The reactions to the teenagers, the camp guides, when they're getting killed is not of an old woman approaching them. There's, they recognise people, and they're like, oh, hello, and then they die, but nothing to say that it's a little old woman. And people are going to be pissed at me. And then Friday the 13th Part 2 came out. It was a little bit better. I like Sackhead Jason, but it was, more of the same. Then Part 3 came out. We get The Mask. I enjoy this film more than Parts 1 and 2. We get the hockey mask. We got the bike, but there's still some really silly, goofy shit going on there. And whilst I enjoy it, it's not one of my favourite horror movies, and it's certainly not one of my favourites from this franchise, but it's an enjoyable horror movie. And, I'll skip Part 1 and 2 and start on Part 3. Then we get to the final chapter, Part 4. And Part 4, sometimes it sways for me which one is better, the remake or Part 4. I love Part 4. It's got some goofy elements, but they just work. Crispin Glover's dancing. As stupid as it is, it works. It's brilliant because he's this zany, off-the-wall character. Really enjoy it. Love the ending. Love Corey Feldman in it. There's no bad acting in this compared to the first three. The effects are a lot better. The whole Jason's face sliding down the machete blade. Fantastic. Then we get a new beginning that is universally hated. I don't mind it all that much. It's more of a Scooby-Doo Friday the 13th movie, and it's a whodunit, but at least we get a clue as to who done it at the beginning of the movie. There's some really strange, bizarre acting choices in this movie. It's okay, the reveal at the end is a bit of a letdown, but at least it makes more sense than the original movie. It's kind of enjoyable to me. Jason Lives, New Blood, I can enjoy them. They're decent Jason movies. I can get into them, but I'd rather watch parts 1, 2, and 3 of Nightmare on Elm Street before getting back into these movies to review or to rewatch. Jason Takes Manhattan. truly, truly awful. There's one good scene. It's the boxing scene. You know the one? It's in my opening credits. I love that scene. The rest of the film is awful. I don't understand why Jason is constantly wet and slimy. I don't understand why toxic waste turns him into a child. I don't understand why it's called Jason Takes Manhattan when Manhattan just doesn't feature in the movie. There's like a shot of Times Square. The rest is clearly shot in Canada or on a boat. How did a boat on a lake get into the ocean, travel around to Canada? Oh, sorry, travel around to New York. It makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. They get aboard an ocean liner on Camp Crystal Lake when we have never ever seen anything other than small rubber dinghies on that lake. Awful. Jason Goes to Hell, borderline a Jason-less movie. It's fucking weird. Really weird. Kind of enjoy certain elements of it. I like they tried something different. And obviously we get the glove burst at the end. Freddy versus Jason. We had to wait forever for Freddy vs. Jason after being teased there. Then there was Jason X. Now, some people get some weird, morbid enjoyment out of Jason X. I ain't one of them. There are 2 kills in the movie that are brilliant. It's the sleeping bag kill all over again, but there's 2 people stuffed in a sleeping bag and repeatedly smashed into a tree. I laugh at that. And then there's the liquid nitrogen head smash. That's a great kill. I like the look of Jason in the opening of this movie, but after that, there's nothing. Those 3 things. The original look of Jason in there. Those 2 kills. After that, there is nothing. The acting is fucking abysmal. It looks like a Sci-Fi channel, cheap, fan-funded version of Friday the 13th. And Jason is this powerful, unstoppable force. And then it's like, oh yeah, we gave him superpowers for 10 minutes. He looked like some sort of shit Power Ranger villain. I hate this movie. Whilst I can suspend disbelief for the most part, I could not get past the bad acting. I could not get past the bad effects. I'm like, how did you make something in 2002 that looked worse than 1982? What the fuck did you do wrong? Awful. Everyone in it, acting-wise, absolutely abysmal. Freddy vs. Jason, I absolutely adore that movie. I know people hate it for whatever reason. I adore it. It's the best version that we could have got of those 2 horror icons going head to head. I love it. Then the 2009 remake came out, and I went to the cinema to watch it, and I'm like, because the boys wanted to go. And I'm like, I'm not that much of a Friday fan, and another remake because we were being bombarded with remakes. Like, whatever. I went to watch it, and I'm like, oh, that's smart. They condensed the first 4 films down into basically the opening montage and the first quarter of the movie. I like that. They've done away with all of the fluff and rubbish of them and just condensed it into this short bang, straight in with Jason. Sackhead Jason in this looks brilliant. Jason in this looks amazing. He is a big, hulking human, and he runs, as he should. And for all the people who are like, Jason shouldn't run, Jason has superpowers, he teleports. No. Go back and watch parts 2 and 3 again, and tell me how many times Jason runs, because it's a few. So there. It also makes sense that Jason has these underground tunnels and a bell system rigged up to alert him that people are coming into his home. And that is how he is able to pop up behind people. That is how he is always able to know where people are. It is because of this smart system that he's developed, even though Jason ain't that smart. This film is grimy. This film is bloodthirsty. Another complaint people have is the cast. There's that one guy. Your tits are stupendous. People hate that guy. I hate that guy. But you're meant to hate that guy. He is a throwback to the old Jason movies where you're like, didn't that guy just die already? He's that guy. He was written purposely to be that guy, and it works for me. I think Jared Padalecki was really good in this, and I'm a Supernatural fan, but Jared Padalecki, over the course of 15 years, started to get on my nerves pulling the same stupid faces all. He played a different role in this. He played a different character in this, and I enjoyed it. Same as Jensen Ackles in My Bloody Valentine. He was very different in that, but that movie did suck, to be fair. This was a good film, a very powerful, scary Jason, and it's a shame they never carried on that franchise with the surviving cast members, because I think it's the best movie of the franchise. It is easily the best one to look at. It looks absolutely fantastic, and this image of Jason just running at people, hatchet in the head, and then he just boots them off, the sound effects, the boiling of somebody, the cooking of somebody in a sleeping bag above the fire, This film is brutal, and I love it. I personally think it is the best Friday the 13th movie. They are my horror movie hot takes. I'm not telling you that this is the way it is and you must agree with me. We can all have different opinions. We can all have different views on movies. I understand that some people don't like the Evil Dead newer movies. Some people don't like any remakes at all, and that is absolutely fine. That is up to you. But please, let me know in the comment section down below, what are your horror movie hot takes? Is there a movie that people love that you absolutely hate? Is there a movie that you think doesn't get any credibility where it deserves it? Let me know in the comment section down below. Much love to you all. Beardo out.